Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
What you just listened to is Apple's advert commercial in the year 1997 titled "Here's to the Crazy Ones." Now, if you listen to that 1 minute commercial, I would suggest you take it back and listen twice or thrice. Just listen to that 1 minute over again so you really get the details of the things that were mentioned, the things that were said. But if you listen very closely, in that 1 minute, in that moment, you would find one of the biggest secrets behind Apple's significance, behind Apple's might and success in today's world. Now, currently, Apple is the most valuable company in the world. That's the company with the highest valuation in terms of worth, in terms of estimation of worth. And yes, there are other variables that might have contributed to the success of Apple: the founder, the technology, the product, the timing at which the product came out, and a lot of other things. Yes, that's agreed, that's certain. But those variables were just a part. They were just a part of the whole mix. They just played their part. But one of the major things that contributed actually to Apple's success and grandness today is that idea of the crazy ones, the misfits, the ones that are out of convention, that believed in the things that do not yet appear. And that was the idea that was communicated in that 1 minute commercial. So these ones are not conventional. They seem out of their mind. They seem like they are mad. If you watch the visuals of that commercial, you see people like Albert Einstein, you see people like Pablo Picasso, Muhammad Ali. These are people that have been known to have done things that are out of the box, out of the conventions. Things that the regular average person cannot seem to comprehend. They can't seem to understand them. They can't seem to fathom what is behind what they are doing, what is powering these guys, why are they functioning this way. And that's what this episode is about. So we're still in the series God's Businessman, and I would really advise that you go back to the previous episodes and catch up on what we've been discussing, line over line, precept over precept, so that we can be on the same page. Yeah, so I'll just go straight into what this episode is about, and that's titled The Crazy Ones. The Crazy Ones. So I'm going to be opening this episode with a statement made by Paul in the scriptures. He said, "By the grace of God, I am what I am. And this grace was not given to me in vain, but I labored more abundantly than all of them." It says, yet it's not just me, but the grace of God that was with me. Now, so Paul is saying that if you look at the things that I've done, the seemingly out of the world exploits, crazy things that I've done, Paul's exploits were out of the norm. They were things that the mind could not shake off. This is a man that got attacked by a snake and then he just shook it off into the fire without even checking for, venom bites and all those things, the infection and anything. This is a man that was stoned to death, threw over the wall of the city, and then he just dusted himself off and then stood up again, and he still went back into the same pursuit. That was a point for him to give up and, find something safer, something better to do with his life. And that exactly is the definition of the crazy ones. That's the proper definition. So if you look at it, all of scriptures, you would see this element of seeming madness, this element of seeming craziness, more like they were out of their mind. There was a particular point where Paul was being interviewed by a ruler in the town, and after listening to Paul for a while, he came to a conclusion that, no, Paul, much learning has made you mad. Practically, that was what he said. He said, much learning has made you mad. So while this ruler could not deny that this guy knows what he's talking about. When somebody is speaking from a place of conviction, he has seen something and then he's speaking out of the fullness of his conviction. He knows that this guy is speaking of something he's sure of. Just that he could not fathom, he could not understand why. And the only conclusion for him was, you must be mad. Something is off with this guy. So he could not deny the essence of what Paul was saying, but he could still not understand it. So the only explanation was, this guy must be mad. He must be out of your mind, right? So Paul is saying here that, the things that you see me do, I'm not doing it by my own efforts, not by my own strength. It's the grace of God. Purely the grace of God. But I did not waste that grace. That grace was not wasted. How? He said, I labored more abundantly than all of them. This guy is saying, I labored more abundantly than all of the apostles of Jesus. All of them. Even though he wasn't part of, the 12 apostles from the start. I mean, you are not part of the 12 selected apostles and you're making that audacious statement. Almost seeming egoistic. Seems like a statement of pride. That's a big statement to make. That you labored, he didn't just say I labored more than one person. He didn't just say I labored more than some of them. He said all of them. I mean, to give you proper context to what he is saying, just think about where Jesus said, the thief has come to steal, kill, and destroy. Talking about death, spiritual death. And then he says, I have come to give them life. And I've come to give them more abundantly. So, it's as far apart as life and death. The same way Jesus used more abundantly. And to put a very proper context to it, he didn't just say, I labored more than them. He says, I labored more abundantly. Now, this is the exact same thing Paul is saying. The gap between my labor and their labor is as far apart as life and death. Way far apart. And he's saying that's the reason why it looks like, I'm really, really, really out of their league. So I labored more abundantly. I wish I could just expound more on that. Paul is saying, I'm not just doing 1.5x. I'm not just doing 2 times what they are doing. That could not have been more abundantly. Think about that. I mean, if Paul did not exaggerate, then it must have been that he's talking 10x, he's talking 5x, 10 times. My labor is at a 10x grade. It was a form of labor that was far apart. There's a very huge, labor gap in between my labor and their labor. Now, again, the people that he's referencing are not lazy people. The apostles are not lazy people. They are not. So, he's not just talking about just any Dick, Tom, and Harry anywhere. These are people that have equally turned cities upside down. People have looked at what they're doing and then they're like, these guys have turned the city upside down. They've literally turned the city upside down. And he's still saying, with respect to these people, in relation to these people, I labored more abundantly. Now, this concept of more abundant execution, laboring more abundantly, that's what I want us to look at. That's what ties into the title, The Crazy Ones. So it's more or less like there is a gap, a huge gap between mediocre performance and outstanding performance, right? A gap, a huge gap. And it's only the ones that sustain this seeming level of madness, so to speak, to function far above convention that will ever make that outstanding impact, that outstanding difference. Now, this is what I mean. It means that if convention is at a level and you are doing 1.5 times, 2.5 times, 3 times convention, you will still wallow around the same convention. Let me say that again. Outstanding is not 2x or 3x. It's not 3 times convention. It's not just a bit above convention. That's not what outstanding is. It means if your labor is still, a bit above average, it's still going to fall into that bracket of average results. So it means there is a threshold. There's a threshold of labor that is a ceiling that you must break. It's what I call the 10x threshold, such that your labor is seemingly as though 10 times the average, normal nominal labor. And I can tell you the supply of grace and results that follows such a labor is usually unbelievably far apart. So the truth of the matter is there's actually no middle point. There's no fine line. You're either on that extended end of craziness, that extended end of madness, or you are normal. So anybody trying to find a sweet spot, a middle ground, a middle spot in between, would end up normal. So you are just settling for normal, you are settling for average. You are saying, oh, I don't want to go to the extreme. I just want to do, a little bit above average. I don't want average anyways, but I just want to do a little bit above average. I just want to do something that stands a bit above average. Now, once you set that as your goal, you will eventually fall into that bracket of normal. It's more like a school grading system where anything below 90, anything below 95 is a grade B. So 95 upwards is grade A, and anything below 95 all down to 40 is grade B. Just think about that. So if you score 50, it's still a B. If you score 60, still a B. If you score 70, it's still a B. There's just that huge wide gap. That's as far as you can manage a B, you're fine. As far as you can manage grade B. So 85, you are still in the bracket of grade B. So much that somebody that scored 45 and you that you scored 70, you're still in the same bracket. So if you're really looking for the exceptional standard, you need to go into the upper percentile. So you are not choosing the middle ground. You are not choosing the middle ground is falling into normal. You are just going to fall into that bracket of normal. You are falling into convention and you don't know it. But truly that's what it is. In practical times, in real life, that's what it is. Trying to find a sweet spot in between the extended end and the normal would end you in the bracket of the normal. How I wish you could get that. How I wish you could get that. So it just keeps you in the company of the normal. Trying to find a sweet spot in between, where you are not drawing any attention, you are not doing too much, you are not seeming out of your mind. You end up in that conventional bracket, that bracket of the regular ones, the normal ones. Now, until you hit that craziness threshold, that madness threshold, nothing is actually going to come out exceptional. Think about it. Think about a madman. A madman in any place, in any area where you find him, does not need any announcement. You don't need to announce that there is a madman here. He doesn't need to say, hello, see me, I'm here. No, he doesn't need to do all that. By the reason of how he thinks, by the reason of how he talks, by the reason of what he's seeing, by the reason of what he's doing, by the reason of how he's conducting himself, by the reason of how he's making his decision, he will be the first person you will spot. You cannot ignore a madman in a place. You can't. What's the reason? There's something out of the norm about him. He's outside the norm. He's outside the average. He's outside the regular. Outside the convention. So the moment you see yourself blending in, there should be a holy revolt that should rise up within you at any point in time, that you are blending into the regular, into convention in any space. You're an employee, you're an employer of labor, you're a manager, you're a consultant, you're a contractor. once you find yourself blending in, becoming comfortable in that bracket of convention, that grade B bracket. I mean, better than average, but not so better, not exceptional. Except if you are cool with normal, except if you are fine with normal. So not everybody would, find their place in this episode. I'm sure of that. But this episode is for some sets of people. So the moment you see yourself blending in, if a revolt does not rise within you, then you would end up average and normal. I can assure you. You should be agitated. You should be agitated by convention. That's what the definition of the crazy ones are. Those are the crazy ones. Those are the exceptional ones. So anytime you find yourself conforming into the norm, into the conventional, anytime you find yourself, just playing around the corridor of the norm, playing around the convention, know that you are still in the neighborhood, right? You're still in the neighborhood of average, and then so you're average. So this 10x labor that I'm talking about, this 10x execution that I'm talking about, cannot just be fulfilled by spending 10 times the amount of time that the average person is spending. That's not what I'm talking about. It doesn't start with the exertion of effort. It doesn't start with 10 times effort. Paul was not saying I'm spending 10 times the number of hours they spend working. No, that's not what he's saying. Where does it start from? It starts from the pictures that drive your action, the mad mental pictures that drive your action. So it doesn't start with trying to work 10 times more. If you listen to the previous episode, I mentioned something around the mind frame that thinks more results comes from more hours, more results comes from more effort or more time spent, and how that you need to deconstruct that. So very similarly, what I'm talking about here, the 10x labor is not looking at what the average person does and deciding to spend 10 times more hours. No, that's not what it is. When Paul was saying, I pray in tongues more than they all, he was referring to an entire church. He practically could not be saying the number of hours I spent praying is 10 times the number of hours they spent praying. That would be practically impossible. Every man has 24 hours. So he could not have done that. Definitely. So what was he talking about? I mean, a church of 50, 100 people, for you to say you pray more than all of them. So the metric is different. And that metric is what I call the mad mental pictures. He was talking about the fervor and the vigor of his prayer. He wasn't talking just about the number of hours. Now, the number of hours are just a consequence. It's going to be a spin-off of the vigor and rigor, the fervor of the mental pictures that he has. So the idea of trying to do 10x the number of hours, starting from that point is wrong. You can't start from trying to do 10 times. You can't start from that point. That's a formula for exhaustion. You will get exhausted. So if you don't have that mental picture that is exceedingly far above convention, if that is not what is driving your action, you will be exhausted. You will surely find it stupid. You will find yourself funny at some point. You will laugh at yourself and just drop back into the convention. And that's what a lot of people have done. They've seen things, they've heard things that made them feel like, oh, I've been working 1 hour per day. Now I need to do 15 hours per day. I need to do 10 hours per day. Now it doesn't start from there. If you start that way, you are going to get exhausted. You are going to look at yourself and think, oh, I'm going funny here. I'm going mad here. So where does it start from? It starts from the mental pictures, the crazy mental pictures, the pictures beyond convention, beyond regular. So just think about this. Think about a madman trying to put 100 men to flight, trying to chase 100 men out of a room, out of a floor. Basically, all he needs to do is to just maybe get a stick in his hands. Sometimes without a stick, a madman, one single madman, can in 5 minutes drive out 100 people from a room. Just one single, sometimes without anything in his hands. Now, let's think about a regular man trying to drive 100 people out of a room. Even with a gun, you might not do it. It might take you hours to drive 100 people out of a room. Even with a gun. Because you will only shoot 5-10 people. And then before you are done shooting everybody, there's somebody else that would grab you and beat the living daylight out of you. You can be all day there trying to chase these people out of the room. But a madman will just, maybe a stick in his hand, can do that in a few minutes and people are out. People are on their heels. You see the madman, the next thing is you run. All you need to see is the vigor, the fervor, the seriousness in his face. You will move. I mean, you don't need to be told. There's a violence and vigorous demonstration that madman has that has placed him at almost 100x grade of result, 100x grade of execution. So your primary focus should be the pictures, the mental pictures. I call them the mad mental pictures, the crazy mental pictures. That's where it starts from. So it's not really that the madman had, 10 times more, hands to chase, 10 times more legs, 10 times more resources, 10 times more wisdom. He only had a mad mental picture that drove his countenance, drove his activity, drove his engagement, that drove his execution, that people could not stand. So when you see people turn the world upside down, it's because in their mind, they have pictures that are way above the exception. Pictures that have been etched into their mind, almost tattooed into their mind. Those are their pictures. Such that even when they are not able to give expression to it yet, to these mental pictures, these pictures are on continuous autoplay, just on repeat in their mind, pondering and meditating on them. They just have found out how to create a system to keep those pictures playing again and again and again. And that exactly is what sustains them in that realm of craziness. If you look at them, it looks like you can't pull them down. You can't pull them into convention anymore. They're just in their leagues. So to stay in that realm is that your mental pictures must remain. The mental pictures that are above the convention must remain. Without those pictures, you're going to get back into convention. It's only a matter of time. You only maybe try and imitate, just imitate what you are seeing. Imagine a man trying to imitate the madman that chased 100 people and also goes to carry a stick and try to do that. He's going to have the beating of his life. He's going to have the beating of his life. And that's what you do when you see things, when you see people produce results above convention and you are trying to replicate just, by looking at them and then trying to imitate directly what they are doing. That's not what you are seeing. Started from the realm of the pictures that are driving them. So a madman does not, he doesn't want to be accepted. He doesn't want to be seen as a cool person. He doesn't care about all that. He doesn't care if you see him as cool, collected, and accepted. No. He doesn't care about your acceptance. Look over scriptures. You see where Paul was referenced to be mad with so much learning. David was referenced to have danced like a madman. There's a level of audacity. There's a level of conviction that this seeming madness will produce. It will surely put you in a place of audacity. So it takes these people out of the realm of the average. Look at Jesus. Look at the things he did. Look at the things he said. I mean, those were not normal things. For somebody to come and tell you that, I've been before Abraham. A 30-year-old man coming and saying, I've been before Abraham. Who are you? Are you out of your mind? That's the next question. Are you okay? I mean, what is that definition of madness than that? You think this guy is crazy? How does he do this? What are you talking about? So there's a wisdom for execution that actually comes to you when you can sustain this far above average mental picture. That these pictures must stay in your mind. You must insist on retaining that picture. And this is how you break existing protocols. A lot of people at one particular point in time have had mental pictures, visions, ideas, pictures that have been given to you by God, and you have, fumbled with it for a few weeks and dropped it. Basically because you felt exhausted. You felt like you were out of place. You were doing something that was out of the norm, something that was not normal, something that you were not at home with. And this is the missing key. This is the starting point. You want to get the level of results the crazy ones are getting. You need to start with the mad mental pictures. Think about it. Is it not madness? Is it not madness for a man to think that I can fly a heavy metal object as heavy as a plane in the air? Just think about how everybody around them would think. Oh, the Wright brothers, they're working on something good, something revolutionary. And what is it? It is that they're trying to fly a heavy metallic object as heavy as a plane. Just that's madness. I mean, is that not madness? Is it not madness to say you want to colonize Mars? It's pure madness. Now, the major thing I would not want you to forget, that I would want you to leave this episode with is that the world actually belongs to these crazy ones. These crazy ones, not the normal ones, these crazy ones. They're actually the ones in charge. In fact, the normal average ones help the crazy ones achieve these mental pictures that I'm talking about. So the normal ones are usually at the mercy of the direction of the crazy ones. The normal ones, the conventional ones, the average men, they seek to be understood, they seek to be accepted. And once you seek that, you've automatically positioned yourself to be in the class of the people that help the crazy ones achieve their pictures. Those mental pictures, the crazy mental pictures that they have. So think of it, regardless of what the economy of a nation is, regardless of what has happened to the enterprise of these crazy ones that I'm talking about. Even let's say he raised money for a project and the project lasted for 10 years, iterating again and again and again, raised money from investors that he was able to convince to believe in his crazy project. And then let's say he failed. Let's just assume he failed. And he maybe ran out of money and all. But what the regular guy sees is that, oh, look at it, he failed. He tried doing this and then he failed. But what you did not see was that he raised money from the normal people and used that money to employ another crop of regular people to leave their house every day, to commit time and energy to this crazy picture that he has. And he did that successfully for 10 years. Got them out of their house 5 times a week, sometimes 7 times a week, to come and invest time, energy, and results on this crazy project for 10 years. That's huge. That's huge. That's a huge thing. So if you understand what I'm saying, you see that the way the world works, the crazy ones are actually the ones in command of the normal ones. They are the ones that dictate how life goes for the normal ones. Think about it. To say that you believe in Christ, to say that you are a believer and you believe in Christ, there's a level of unconventional paradigm you must have. There's a level of abnormal paradigm you must have. If you are reaching out to someone who is not a believer as you, and you are sharing things with them, do you know that the person will just laugh you off? He's going to be pissed off and almost tell you that you must be mad. You're telling me that you believe in a God that you have not seen? You're telling me he did this and that, and you don't have proofs and evidences for them? You must think your mind is playing games with you. So if you are at a point where you feel, oh, I don't want this person to think I'm crazy, I want this person to accept me, you can't go far in your faith. You can't go far in your faith. You can't go far in God. You can't go far in anything at all. You would not make any drastic shift in the way things are being done. Now, you need to understand this. This concept that I'm talking about, this concept of, the crazy ones, is not far-fetched from you. Not far-fetched at all. if you would shift anything in the world that we live in, you have to be in that class of the crazy ones. I mean, these madmen, they are the automatic outliers. You cannot ignore them. You cannot. I know that you've heard things, you have seen people, that are visionaries and this and that have had, pictures and things around projects that they would have executed, probably even worked on for a while, and then collapsed and then just relapsed on them. The trap that happens most of the time is that these visionaries, they get on their job, they get on their project, they start out and start executing and neglect the health of their mind. They neglect the place of the mental pictures that kick-started those activities. So, they go around their day-to-day activities, looking at, normal people, looking at average people, working around average people, average environments, average systems, and that by default deconstructs the pictures they have. So their mental pictures are dumped down, deconstructed, just by moving around an average environment. And so they end up in that state where, I've tried this, I was a visionary, I thought I could do this and that, but it didn't work, so something must have been wrong. Maybe it was not just meant for me, or I was not just meant for it. So you need to understand that the system around you, the chances that you are in a system that is average is very high. The system around you is average. And so for you to sustain these mad mental pictures, you must have a system also that will keep these pictures alive. Once those pictures die, even if you try and play catch up on the end of execution, the madness of your execution will wear you out. You get exhausted. I can assure you, you will be weared out. Now, the two major ways this madness that I speak of is expressed is the madness of vision and the madness of execution. Meaning you have to be an obsessed visionary. There's a level of craziness of vision and craziness of execution that you need to have. Those two things. Madness of vision, madness of execution. Now, the beautiful part is that these two elements fuel each other, such that when you engage this crazy level of execution to a point and the results come forth, the results at that level in themselves are able to catalyze new visions in you. So they're able to show you new possibilities that would give you new visions. So just the craziness of execution in themselves come with results that would create crazy visions for you. New level of crazy visions. And then these crazy visions too would empower you, to execute at a far above convention level, at a level that is beyond the average. And then you get the results that, just at the sight of them, you are catalyzed to see new things. You would see beyond what the average person is seeing. So this is in itself a cycle that you can capitalize on. That in itself is a loop that you can capitalize on. A cycle of the madness of vision that takes you and drives you to execute at an uncommon rate, an unconventional rate. And the results of this unconventional execution are so mind-blowing, mind-shifting enough that you will be inspired to see differently. You would see new things. It becomes a trigger for another level of crazy vision. And then that cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. So the people that are actually in charge of how things are done in the world were not supernaturally elected by mystic force. No, don't look too far. What happens is that they have sustained pictures, mental pictures that are above the average, above convention. And so these pictures drive them to take action at a rate of craziness. The action sustained over time creates results that just merely observing them catalyzes bigger visions. These bigger visions being pursued, driving them to execute again and again and again on another level creates results. New results that would perpetuate and create platform for new things, new visions to open up in them. That is way above what they've ever seen, what they've ever conceived. Now, I know that there are few people that would align with this message, very few people that would understand what this episode is about. But the message still remains that the world belongs to the crazy ones. You have to be crazy enough to believe that you can shift things, that you can shift the perspective of people, that you have a level of influence to shift things and make things happen. That for you to sit somewhere and believe that you can do things that would influence 1,000 people, 10,000 people, or 5 people, just 10 people, you need to be crazy. Because these are 10 people that have their own will. These are 10 people that can decide to do what they want, what they like. For you to have thought that, for you to continually think that, it takes a level of craziness. So you need to have mental pictures that are beyond the average. Pictures that will drive you to action, that will fuel new visions, new possibilities. So I don't know how this episode will come to you. I'm hoping that there'll be a subsequent episode to this actually that is going to be around what happens when you sustain these pictures that are beyond the convention. These pictures that are way above average. So I can see two subsequent episodes that would actually still speak to the same subject matter, and I believe they are going to be very, very, very interesting. They are going to be very, very enlightening for you. So just digest this in the meanwhile, while the other 2 episodes show up in your face. And so I'll try and break down this concept better in those other episodes, but I believe I've passed the message here already. The normal ones are the mercy and custody of the crazy ones. The normal ones, alongside their money, alongside their time, alongside their resources, are in the beck and call of the crazy ones. Take it from me. Who are these crazy ones? They believe extraordinarily, seeming delusionally, and they execute extraordinarily. Those are the crazy ones, and they are the ones in charge of the world. So you're free to listen to this episode again and again and again. You are free to share it with somebody, share it with someone. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Share the link. Follow the Luminary Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then also on AudioMac, so that you can get notifications when the subsequent episodes drop. I wish you good success. Take charge.